I didn't expect applause, but I didn't expect to be erased. The words kept circling my mind as I sat in the back corner of the conference room, hands folded, face unreadable. Outside the glass wall, the city buzzed like usual, indifferent, alive. Inside a list was being read. Every quarter, our company announced salary adjustments in an all-hands meeting, supposedly based on performance, client impact, and growth contribution, and this quarter I had outperformed everyone, brought in more than half the firm's revenue. 60%. 60%. It hadn't come easy. I hadn't taken a full weekend off in 8 months. I lived in red-eye flights and lukewarm takeout. But I was proud of the work, not for the praise, but for the quiet knowledge that I carried more than my weight. Next, the VP announced, eyes flicking over the printed names. Another name. Another polite clap. Another small smile. Still not mine. I didn't shift. Didn't blink. My palms were beginning to sweat, but my expression didn't crack. The list was almost done. 5 names left. Still not mine. He paused, and finally, to wrap things up, it wasn't me. The room erupted in applause. Someone patted my shoulder as they passed. Next time, Evelyn, they said softly, their smile awkward. Next time I didn't move. I didn't trust my legs. My throat was dry, my ears ringing slightly. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something colder, like watching a slow car crash from inside the vehicle. I glanced at the projection on the wall, a neat bullet list of names and their new salary brackets. My name wasn't there, not even misspelled, just absent, erased, as if 60% of the company's revenue had come from thin air. The meeting ended. People filtered out. Laughter returned to the hallway like nothing happened. But something had happened. Something I wouldn't forget, and I didn't say a word. Not yet. The messages started coming in before I even sat down. Nice going, Evelyn. That raise was long overdue. You crushed it this quarter. Congrats. Red velvet cupcakes in the break room. Get yours, superstar. I stood beside my desk, staring blankly at my monitor. For a second, I considered logging off. I hadn't gotten the raise, but no one seemed to know that. Across the room, Ava from Client Relations waved at me with a huge smile. I knew they'd give it to you, she called. You basically kept this place alive. She meant it. Ava was sweet, new, bright-eyed, eager to learn. I had mentored her for the past 6 months, helped her land her first big client. She thought I was invincible. I smiled back and gave a half-hearted thumbs up. My jaw was starting to hurt from pretending I opened Slack. Dozens of messages. Congrats, Evelyn. So deserved. We should celebrate lunch today. About time they recognized your work, except they didn't. In the mix of group chats and public channels, a private message appeared. Rachel, operations lead. Wait, did they actually skip you? Please tell me I misheard. Another ping. J. Product. That was brutal. I'm honestly shocked. You carried this place through Q3. A pause. Then another message. Rachel, you're the one who trained half the team that did get the raise. I stared at that last sentence for a long time. It wasn't just that I was overlooked. It was that I'd built the foundation others were now standing on, and somehow I was the one left out of the photo Ava returned from the break room, cupcake in hand. They put your name on the board, right? She asked, looking genuinely confused. I didn't see it. Must have been a mistake. I swallowed hard. No, I said softly. It wasn't. Her smile faded. I'm sorry. That's not right. She stood there awkwardly, wanting to fix something she couldn't. I nodded toward her cupcake. Enjoy it. I said, forcing a smile. "You've earned it." She walked away slowly, and I sat down, hands trembling under the desk as congratulations kept pouring in, from everyone except the one person who signed the decision. I clicked open the company dashboard. My numbers glared back. 60% of total revenue, 9 renewals, 6 new clients, all tied to my name. Still not enough. Still not seen. The pain wasn't sharp. It was slow, quiet, like a whisper that never stops. Recognition is beautiful until you realize it's powerless. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I just sat there and let it sink in. This was the moment I stopped waiting to be chosen. It wasn't my performance. I knew that now. I had known it quietly since the quarterly review 2 weeks ago, but I didn't want to believe it then. I do now. We were seated in the smaller glass meeting room, the kind with fake plants and that one flickering light no one bothered to fix. My direct manager, Daniel, sat across from me, tapping his pen against his notes like he was building courage. "You've done solid work this quarter," he began, not quite looking at me. I nodded, waiting for the but he said, eyes finally meeting mine, "There are concerns." "Concerns," I repeated, careful to keep my tone even. He exhaled the way people do when they want you to understand their hands are clean. "Your numbers are strong. Evelyn. Really strong. But performance here isn't just about results." There it was. I said nothing. He continued, "We're also evaluating team cohesion, communication style, leadership tone. You're very independent." I almost laughed. Independent. That was a generous way of saying I didn't spend my mornings gossiping at the coffee machine or laughing at Marcus's bad impressions of the CEO. I didn't linger in the kitchen to debate football stats. I didn't join the Friday night Zoom happy hours that somehow lasted 3 hours and involved people clinking wine glasses on camera like we were in a sitcom. I worked. I delivered. I exceeded. And still, I wasn't enough. Daniel cleared his throat. "There's a sense you're not fully bought into the team culture." I blinked, "because I don't go drinking with Marcus after work." He held up both hands. "Hey, I'm just sharing the feedback I've heard." From who I wanted to ask, but I didn't. I already knew Marcus, the golden retriever of the office, loud, charming everywhere at once, barely closed a single client on his own, but was always in the VP's office, always part of strategy brainstorms that looked a lot like inside jokes and sports talk. He got the raise, I got this. I left that review with a tight smile and a pit in my stomach. Now, days later, the pieces finally fit. It wasn't about merit. It was about comfort, about politics, about who made who feel good. Rachel's words echoed in my head. "You're the one who trained half the team that did get the raise, and I spent months helping junior reps refine their pitch decks, coaching them through client objections, even building a shared knowledge doc the whole department used. But I wasn't fun enough, not bubbly, not social, not easy to digest, not political, and that made me dangerous. The worst part wasn't being undervalued. It was being told with a smile that the problem was my tone. I wasn't punished for failing. I was punished for not pretending I didn't speak a word for the rest of the day." No one asked why. No one noticed. Or maybe they did and chose to look the other way. The office had a way of celebrating winners loudly and overlooking the rest in silence. That suited me just fine. I waited until after lunch. That's when the office was most distracted. Half the team wandered off for bubble tea or gossip, and the other half pretended to work while doom-scrolling group chats. I took a sip of cold coffee, minimized my inbox, and opened the CRM dashboard. 16 clients, 16 relationships I had built and protected like glass. I had nurtured them through mergers, market crashes, and CFO tantrums. Not a single one came from someone else's pipeline. They were mine. I clicked into Trident Corp. Lead account manager Evelyn Hayes. Shared with Marcus Caitlin. Jacob. Not anymore. Click remove access. Click adjust visibility. Click change notifications to Evelyn. Only. One by one, I went down the list. Halberg Ventures, Oasis, Energy, Loom, Analytics. Each name another brick in the empire I had quietly built. I didn't delete anything. I wasn't sabotaging the company. I was preserving control, silently repositioning the levers of influence. If they wanted to cut me out of rewards, they could work without the access I gave them. Halfway through a message pinged Ava. Hey, did you see they put Marcus's quote on the internal newsletter? I didn't reply. I just smiled, tight-lipped, unreadable, and kept going. In the middle of reclassifying the Oasis renewal proposal, a voice startled me. Evelyn. It was Devin from IT holding a banana and blinking like he hadn't meant to speak yet. Sorry, didn't mean to sneak up. You didn't, I said calmly. He nodded toward my screen. You cleaning up contact roles, something like that. He hesitated. Let me know if you need help navigating the sync rules. Most people botch it. I tilted my head. You think I'll botch it? He turned pink. No, you're probably the only person here who knows how that thing actually works. I gave a small nod. Thanks, Devin. I'll ping you if I hit a wall. He lingered a second longer, opened his mouth, then changed his mind and walked off, peeling his banana with both hands like it required extreme focus. The moment passed. I kept working. I moved to the shared Google Drive, adjusted document permissions, removed edit rights from strategy decks I had authored, set trackers to view only, cleaned up folders that no one else had touched in months, but would notice the moment they lost access. They had always taken my orderliness for granted, my structure, my systems, my quietly maintained empire. Now they'd feel the holes. They just wouldn't know why. By 4:30 p.m., I had finished. Everything still functioned. Nothing was broken. But behind the curtain, the wires had been rerouted. No Slack message. No meeting invite. No fight. Just silence. And beneath that silence, absolute control. Let them sleep peacefully tonight. Let them feel untouchable. Tomorrow would greet them with blank dashboards, missing links, unanswered emails. And when the questions came, I'd smile politely, I'd act surprised, I'd pretend to help. That was the plan. Not revenge. Just clarity. By 7:52 a.m., the first email went out. Subject, urgent. Higgins file missing. By 8:13, the second followed. Subject, Trident. Client portal. Not loading. Need help. ASAP. By 8:29, chaos was in full bloom. I sat at my desk sipping my coffee like it was any other Monday. The difference was that the air around me buzzed not with conversation, but confusion. The kind that builds when systems start slipping and no one knows why. People were refreshing dashboards, re-logging into CRMs, tapping furiously on keyboards like the issue might be their Wi-Fi. I didn't flinch, Evelyn. It was Lena, a junior in sales, her eyes wide and breath short. Hey, do you know if Oasis Energy changed their login credentials? I looked up slowly. Why do you ask? I tried to pull their last proposal and I don't have access anymore. It's saying I need owner permissions. I frowned sympathetically. That's odd. Have you asked it? She nodded. They're swamped. I'm number 11 in the help ticket queue. I tilted my head. Try pinging Devin directly. He's usually fast. Right? Okay, thanks. She scurried off, typing with both thumbs mid-stride at 9:03 a.m. Marcus stood in the center of the sales floor, arms raised like a panicked conductor. Who here has any access to Halberg's quarterly report? Anyone. Silence. Jay looked up from his screen. Their main contact just canceled our call, said he's reevaluating partnerships. What? Marcus hissed. Why the hell didn't anyone tell me this earlier? We just found out. No, this isn't happening, not today, but it was. The system wasn't down, it was functioning perfectly. It just no longer belonged to them. At 9:21, an emergency meeting was called. I received the invite, I declined it, politely. In the hallway outside the conference room, Daniel, my manager, was pacing. He passed me without a word, eyes darting like he was scanning for something invisible. He looked right at me, then past me like I was part of the wallpaper. Perfect. From where I sat, I could see the projection screen inside the glass room. Half the dashboard tiles were red. Client activity down. Contact reports zeroed out. Task workflows, blank. Inside, the sales director was red-faced, stabbing the air with his hand. Rachel sat, stone still, a notepad untouched on her lap. Devin stood by the door, arms folded, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. This wasn't a glitch. It was a vacuum, a silent extraction, and no one could trace the thread back to its source. Someone 2 desks over whispered, "We're dead if Trident walks." I heard it, I knew it, but I didn't respond, because this wasn't about watching things burn. It was about watching people realize they never had the fire under control. One by one, small cracks were turning into fault lines. By 10:00 a.m., 5 clients had gone dark. 3 had canceled standing calls. 2 submitted cancellation forms. All of them were mine, and still not a single person looked at me. I didn't hide. I didn't dodge questions, but I didn't volunteer answers either. That's the thing about control. When you have it, you don't need to prove it. Let them scramble. Let them theorize. Let them blame faulty syncs and software updates. The storm had arrived and no one saw the lightning coming. The first cancellation came at 10:11 a.m. No angry email, no phone call, just a quiet notification. Subject Trident Corp, contract termination confirmed. It slipped into the system like a shadow marked with the client's standard digital signature. No commentary, no context. I stared at the screen, letting the weight of it settle. 10 minutes later, Halberg Ventures followed suit. Then Oasis Energy, then Loom Analytics, then Catalyst, North, all before 11 a.m. 5 of our biggest clients quietly gone. No warning, no outrage, just silence, the kind of silence that makes your skin prickle. I watched the notification bar in the corner of my screen light up like a soft alarm. No one else could hear. Inside the glass conference room, voices were still raised, whiteboards covered in arrows and scribbled assumptions. They were trying to explain something they didn't even realize had already disappeared. Outside, the sales floor was growing quieter, not calmer, just unsure, like people felt the ground shifting, but didn't yet know which direction it would tilt. Rachel walked past my desk. She didn't say anything, but our eyes met for a second too long. Her face was pale. She knew something was wrong. Maybe not what, but who. At 11:08, Marcus let out a soft, defeated curse from his desk. "They're all gone," he muttered, staring at the client dashboard. "All of them." No one responded. Someone in finance asked whether the system was glitching. It said no. Devin confirmed all back-end logs were clean. Nothing had been deleted. Everything was functioning properly, which was true. It was. The data was still there. The tools still worked. The files hadn't vanished. The clients had, but they hadn't stormed out. They hadn't slammed doors. They just walked away without explanation, without a trace. And that's the thing about real loss. It rarely makes noise. People expect devastation to be loud. They expect alarms, fights, things breaking. But real loss is quiet. It leaves behind echoes, not evidence. The break room was empty now. Even the espresso machine hummed softer, as if trying not to draw attention to itself. I glanced back at my screen. 5 cancellations, millions in contracts gone, and no one had asked me a single question. They didn't even know where to look, but they would. Soon. The walls were glass. Every word, every raised voice, every desperate gesture inside that room was visible to the outside world like a fishbowl filled with corporate panic. I walked by, slowly, steady, as if I had all the time in the world. Because I did. Inside the conference room, Daniel stood near the whiteboard, his voice sharp and shaking at the same time. "No, listen. This isn't just a sync issue. We've lost 5 clients in less than 2 hours. This isn't a tech glitch. It's a pipeline hemorrhage." He jabbed at the screen behind him, which displayed a dashboard full of red flags. I recognized the metrics instantly. Churn rate spike, client drop-off alerts, stalled renewal funnels. Exactly the symptoms they should have seen coming. Marcus, sitting at the table, looked like he'd aged 10 years since breakfast. His usual swagger had melted into a hunched stare, eyes darting to anyone who might have an answer. He opened his mouth to speak, but Rachel cut him off. "We've checked permissions, we've checked system logs, everything tracks. The files weren't lost, the clients just left." A heavy pause. From the far corner, Devin cleared his throat. To be clear, no unauthorized access. Nothing was wiped or exported. All movements were internal, clean. No breach. Daniel ran a hand through his thinning hair, his expression crumbling further. Then someone inside initiated this. Someone with access. Someone we didn't see coming. His voice cracked on the last word, a flicker of fear in his eyes. That was new. I kept walking, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't need to watch. I already knew what was happening. They were unraveling. And not because of what they had done to me, but because of what I chose not to do for them anymore. That was the part no one ever expected, that silence could be a weapon sharper than any confrontation. I passed Ava near the coffee bar. She was frozen, holding a paper cup like she wasn't sure what to do with it anymore. Her eyes followed me. She whispered, "They're losing it in there." I smiled faint and composed. She hesitated. "Do you know what's going on?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and in a calm, measured voice said, "Sometimes people don't realize who holds the system together until it starts falling apart." She didn't respond. She just stood there, blinking like she had heard something important but didn't quite understand it yet. Back inside the room, Daniel slammed his palm on the table. "Find me answers. I want names. I want timestamps. I want solutions now." But there were none. Not yet. Because they still didn't realize what they'd lost wasn't stored on a server. It was never a file, a dashboard, or a login. It was trust. It was loyalty. It was me. And they gave it away for free. As I turned the corner, their voices faded behind the glass, still panicking, still pointing fingers. And I kept walking, not faster, not slower, just steady, because cold satisfaction doesn't need an audience. They still hadn't called my name. No one summoned me into a meeting. No one asked me to explain what was happening. There were no dramatic confrontations, no angry emails, not even a passing accusation. But the cracks were spreading. The floor was shifting, and I was standing completely still. At 11:46 a.m., I watched the company's internal metrics screen update again. Client engagement down, 42%, active proposals, frozen sales, chat, channels, dead silent. Outside the conference room, Marcus leaned against the wall, his tie loosened, brow damp. He looked like a man who'd just realized the fire was already in the walls I kept to my desk. Calm, untouched. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need to be right out loud. That was never the point. The point was, I had stepped back, and the entire system, the performance metrics, the pipeline, the client trust had followed me. You don't realize how much you hold until you release it. It wasn't just about the clients. It was how the team used to function because I was there. The workflows I'd streamlined, the quiet nudges I gave when meetings veered off course, the way junior reps would forward me drafts for polish without being told. My fingerprints were on everything but never in the spotlight, and now that I was silent, everything was louder, messier, cracked. I walked to the printer just as Rachel was returning from the war zone upstairs. She looked drained. Her notepad was still blank. "They have no idea what to do," she muttered more to herself than to me. I offered a gentle nod. Sometimes people only notice the architect once the foundation starts to split. Her eyes flicked to mine. There was a pause, not surprise, not confusion, recognition. She knew, not the full picture maybe, but enough to realize this hadn't just happened. I picked up my documents and returned to my seat. Across the room, someone asked Devin if the CRM had a backup file they could restore. He replied, "There's nothing to restore. Nothing broke." Exactly. They were looking for a bug. They didn't understand it was absence. True power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wave or shout. It just leaves. And the silence that follows. That's the sound of gravity shifting. At 3:02 p.m., I logged into a private Zoom room. My camera was off. Just for a moment, I needed to breathe fully freely without pretending. On the screen, 5 names popped up. Trident Corp, Oasis, Energy, Halberg Ventures, Loom Analytics Catalyst. North. Not one of them had reached out to the company directly. All of them had called me. The backgrounds behind each executive were different. Office towers, home libraries, sleek boardrooms, but the expressions were the same. Calm, waiting, respectful. Evelyn said, Diane from Catalyst North. Her voice warm. "Glad you could join us. I wouldn't miss it," I replied, finally turning on my camera. And in that moment, something shifted. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a number in someone else's system. I wasn't sitting in a cubicle beneath a logo. I wasn't someone's employee. I was Evelyn. And they weren't here for the firm. They were here for me. "We wanted to speak with you directly," said James from Trident. "We've always worked through you. It doesn't make sense to keep pretending otherwise." I nodded slowly. Understood. "We've seen the shifts happening over there," he added, "and frankly, we're not impressed." There it was, I hadn't lost them, the company had. And it wasn't about access or platforms or even contracts. It was about trust. Every late-night negotiation, every crisis I helped them navigate. Every time I said, "I'll handle it," and meant it, those things didn't disappear just because my email signature changed. That was the truth. They never taught you. In corporate life, your value doesn't vanish when you walk out the door. If it was real, it walks with you. "Look," Diane said gently, "if you're thinking of starting something, we'd be interested in continuing with you. As a client. Not the firm." My screen flickered as heads nodded across windows. I didn't speak right away. I let the moment settle, not out of hesitation, but out of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. I didn't need titles, I didn't need permission, I didn't need the walls of a building to prove who I was. They hadn't left the company randomly. They had followed the value. They had followed me. The desk was temporary, an old kitchen table near my apartment window, but it felt more like mine than any office ever had. There was no logo on the wall, no clunky time-tracking app blinking in the corner of my screen. Just me. A black notebook and a digital whiteboard, filled with names that once belonged to someone else's pipeline. Now they were coming to me directly. No middlemen, no politics, no glass walls. For the first time in my career, I wasn't building someone else's dream while being told to wait my turn. I was designing mine blueprint by blueprint, step by step, mistake by mistake. It started simply: a consulting framework, a new business entity, a brand name. No one could erase from a roster. I reached out to Rachel that week. She was the first to leave the company after the fallout. When I told her what I was planning, she didn't hesitate. "I'm in," she said. "I'm so in." One by one, others followed. Not just clients, but colleagues. People who saw through the noise. People who were ready for something real, something built on substance, not flash. I didn't announce anything with fanfare, no dramatic posts, no passive-aggressive goodbyes. I just started, and piece by piece something new took shape. It was lean, it was honest, it was mine, and most importantly, I no longer needed someone else's permission to feel valuable. The truth is, for years I thought being chosen was the goal, that if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, someone would finally say, "You matter." But now I know being chosen isn't the win. Choosing yourself is. Because when you stop waiting for the room to see you and start building a room of your own, that's when everything changes. So if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or erased, this is for you. You are not invisible. You are not replaceable. You are not just a line in someone else's budget. You are the foundation they forgot they were standing on, and now it's your turn to build.